All right, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Devin Nunes, revealed yesterday that GOP lawmakers are reviewing over a dozen interview transcripts as they are considering making criminal referrals for an investigation into possible political bias within the FBI. Joining us now with the huge details on this is Congressman Devin Nunes himself. Congressman, this is a big deal, and also on FISA abuse, on a lot of other issues. What specifically are you looking at?
Well, a lot of people out there think that just because we're in the minority that somehow we're not going to continue this investigation. So we're going to work with the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, Sean, to ensure that this investigation into FISA abuse and other matters continues. The good thing is that we got through about 15 interviews last year. The task force did. You covered it extensively on your show. We're going to continue to call people in for interviews. Just last week, the new chairman of the committee said that he's going to reopen the Russia investigation. We offered about a dozen subpoenas of people that we wanted to subpoena. We don't expect for them to subpoena the people that we want, but at every attempt that we can, at every opportunity that we get, we will make attempts to subpoena these people to come in and speak. We will also ask for people to voluntarily come in and speak. Look, we need the new Attorney General to get in there, and then we will be making criminal referrals on many people who lied to Congress and did other bad things.
Well, I mean, does that mean we could be expecting pre-dawn raids with amphibious vehicles, frogmen, SWAT teams of 27, you know, all of this to arrest one guy on a process crime? Is that going to happen to Democrats? In other words, aren't there a list of well-known people that served the Obama administration that lied under oath?
Well, I'm not asking anyone to be Roger Stoned, which I think is now a verb now.
Yeah.
But I am expecting people to be held accountable. So if you're going to bust people for lying to Congress, then we need to bust everyone for lying to Congress. And look, we're just the House side. My guess is on the Senate side, there's many people that some of the same people that probably lied over there, so they should also be doing the same.
Well, we saw, but thought a very big announcement by Richard Burr. We don't have anything that would suggest there was any collusion by the Trump campaign and the Russians. So after all this time, all this money, and all this, I guess, speculation and hyperventilating reporting, nothing is there. You've seen everything. Have you seen any evidence whatsoever?
Well, and Sean, it's not just that. I mean, there hasn't been collusion. As you know, the Trump campaign was so small, it would have been almost impossible for them to collude anyway, even if they wanted to collude. But what is frustrating, I think, and we brought this up last week, when Adam Schiff reopened his investigation into the Trump campaign, we said, great, are you going to open up the investigation into the Hillary Clinton campaign? Because there we already know that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party were colluding with Russians. They were getting information from Russians, dirt on Trump, that they could then spread throughout the media. That's exactly what they were looking at the Trump campaign supposedly for.
What about FISA abuse? We now know that Bruce Orr warned everybody at the DOJ and the FBI, and by the way, including Andrew Weissman, Mueller's pit bull, that it was put together by a Trump hater named Christopher Steele, eventually fired for lying and leaking, and Hillary paid for it, and it's unverified and uncorroborated. Not corroborated. So the question is, it was used 4 times and signed off. What about all those people that signed off on a document that they never verified?
All of them should be held accountable. So we're attempting to hold them accountable in Congress. Well, probably the right thing that should happen would be the judges to hold them accountable. But in the meantime, the new Attorney General, when he gets in there, he should immediately call for some type of review of all of this. And we're going to present him the information that we have. And I think at that point, hopefully something will happen.
With criminal referrals.
It goes back to, either criminal referrals or, if the judges hold them accountable, they can lose their law license. But really, if there's not reforms done to the FISA process, if accountability is not delivered in this matter, I think it's going to be very hard for Americans don't want to be less secure, right? Republicans have supported these programs for many, many years. However, I doubt right now that you'd find very many votes to support the continuation of FISA programs if it's going to be political, and there's got to be some guarantees that this process is not going to be political in the future, and that
John Solomon reported that then FBI Director Mueller had to go before the FISA court and answer for 75 particular cases where exculpatory information was withheld to obtain the FISA. Remember, Deputy FBI Director McCabe said, no dossier, no FISA. But they used the unverified dossier, signed off on it as if it was gospel. They never verified it.
And don't forget what we've been saying publicly now for many, many months. It's not just that they used the dossier. It's not just that the dossier made up most of the FISA. It's also everything else that they did. So it's how they lied. It's how they obstructed our investigation, and then how they, if you remember, people forget about this. People went out and said, well, the dossier didn't have anything to do with it. There was all this other stuff. We went out and looked at all that other stuff, and that's what we've been asking the president to declassify, because we believe that that makes up that so-called other stuff is also equally as bad as using political dirt.
I predict at one point he will. Congressman, great work. Thank you for updating us and being with us. Devin Nunes, thank you.
I hate to tell you I told you so, but I told you so. When the White House and the GOP failed to act on the Trump immigration agenda in the first 100 days of his presidency, his pledge to build a wall would be jeopardized. Trump's initial instinct, which is usually spot on, was to veto that omnibus bill last year. I'm telling you, he was right then. But Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell promised him that they would get this wall funded in full in the lame duck session if that was necessary. Well, big shocker, that never happened. So after Speaker Paul, I need to spend weekends at home, Ryan, handed the majority to the Democrats, well, the president faced an even higher wall of resistance. A lame-o border deal was announced right before the president took to the stage in El Paso last night, and by the morning, the details started trickling in.
I have to study it. I'm not happy about it. It's not doing the trick, but I'm adding things to it. And when you add whatever I have to add, it's all going to happen. We're building a wall. And now I'm saying we're finishing a wall.
Well, that won't happen, though, not unless the president finds the money elsewhere or declares a national emergency, which will immediately be challenged, of course, by the left in court. And tonight, after speaking with one of the Republican architects, Richard Shelby, senator from Alabama, of the latest deal, the president tweeted, was just presented the concept and parameters of the border security deal by hardworking Senator Richard Shelby. Looking over all aspects, knowing that this will be hooked up with lots of money from other sources, we'll be getting almost $23 billion for border security. Regardless of wall money, it is being built as we speak. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so what's in this deal? What's really in it? The official language hasn't fully been released, and I love this. You're doing this at the last minute, try to rush it through. But here are some of the basics of the deal as reported. $1.375 billion for barriers that are not called, but look a heck of a lot like the steel, slanted structure, the barrier that Trump had already approved. Second, an average daily cap of 40,520 beds for detaining illegals. Now, that's almost 9,000 fewer than we're detaining now. But Trump would have the authority to boost that number, pulling the money from other sources. Now, there's more to it, too, but it's simple to see what's going on here. The Democrats' ultimate goal is to codify catch and release, where if an illegal makes it into the country, he or she will be welcome to stay, along with any child he or she brings with them across the border. Now, what does this do? I mean, this is not a difficult concept, right? It only encourages more illegal immigration. Now, remember, the president asked for $25 billion last year for the wall, and a bunch of other reforms as well that made a lot of sense. But the Dems wouldn't budge on issues like chain migration or those diversity visas. They wouldn't go near it. Then in December, now moving into the lame duck session, he asked for 1/5 of that. Yeah, I'm still pretty good at math, sort of. It's $5 billion of the $25 billion. Now, he perhaps thought that this would become some type of annual wall expenditure. Well, fat chance. They don't want a wall. They never wanted a wall. But on the bright side, and I have to look at the glass half full here, the current deal does expose just how far left the Democrat Party has gone on the issue of illegal immigration. They've gone from this.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
An illegal alien should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
We must control our borders, must protect our borders.
To this.
We know that walls do not save lives. Walls end lives. There is no bargain in which we can sacrifice some of our humanity to gain a little more security.
Oh, really? So walls kill people. Well, last year there were 1,247 people slaughtered in a vicious fashion, many of them, by the cartels and other criminals across the border in Juarez. That was a 62% jump from the year prior. It's a killing field there. So Beto can't possibly mean we should tear down the current wall in El Paso, can he? Well, think again. Remember this gem that then Congressman O'Rourke sent out in 2015? It read, "Tear down this wall." Oh, boy, that's a keeper. Well, I can tell you that the people we met in El Paso last night, they disagreed vehemently. And an underreported fact is that about half of the audience at the Trump rally were themselves Hispanic. And they most certainly do not want the wall between the cartel-run Juarez and El Paso torn down. No way. They love their peaceful community. It was a really fun place to be. We loved meeting the folks we met there last night. They don't want any part of Juarez's way of life with beheadings and bodies that have been dumped in the street.
Last year, Juarez had 1,200 murders. El Paso, right next door, a few feet away, had 23 murders. Walls work. Actually, there's nothing like them for what we're talking about. We want to stop drugs. We want to stop traffickers. We want to stop criminals from coming in. Walls save lives.
Now, of course, as much as we wish things were different, the fact of the matter is Trump is vowing to continue this fight right through the 2020 election about the wall and keeping our country safe. And another shutdown would have probably ended up hurting the president, distracting from this booming economy. And we're here in Texas. It is off the charts. And there's a lot of other great news as well that would be distracted from if this thing continued in a shutdown form, including the China negotiations going on right now in Beijing. And also, let's not forget, while Trump isn't getting everything he wants, and definitely not what most of us want, Democrats are also breaking Pelosi's pledge.
Is there any situation in which you would accept even $1 of wall funding for this president in order to reopen the government?
$1? $1? Yeah, $1.
Well, try $1.375 billion. She might not want to call it a wall, but that's what it is. And that's not all bad. And that's the angle.